Hello, everyone. Welcome to our third episode of the Agile Fireside Chat. My name's Arif. You've probably seen me by now. I'm co-founder of Humble Associates, together with my wonderful fellow co-founder TK, and we have our guest tonight, Sade, who's going to be joining us. And we're really excited to have her with us to talk about her experiences, her background, and what she brings to leadership and all those cool things. So, Sade, why don't you get us started, and why don't you introduce yourself to our viewers and tell us a bit about yourself?
Okay, thank you, Arif and TK. My name is Sade. I'm a lead delivery manager right now. I came into the digital world in the year 2000 as a software engineer. And since then, I've moved to program management, project management, and more recently, agile way of managing people. My background, degree wise, was in guidance and counselling. So
Yeah.
interesting move and pivot. Yeah, thank you.
So, and tell us a bit more about that background, maybe about yourself and how that has led to where you are today, from that background to today. Why don't you share a bit about that with our viewers?
Okay, so I after my degree in guidance and counselling, I wanted to move abroad. So came originally from Nigeria, even though I was born here.
Amazing.
So I got admitted into university with masters to read computer science. But when I came over, I realized that I needed to have been in the country for 3 years to pay the home fee.
Oh,
So it was
yeah.
quite expensive. So I decided to start working with homeless people. So use my
Wow.
counseling skills. I did that for 7 years. But then I thought, I want to go back home one day. What skills can I take back home? Because the issues facing young people in this country is different from back home. So
Hmm.
I thought, what can I do that I will be able to actually take those skills back to use at home as experience wise? And I thought coding, because coding language is the same everywhere.
True. Yep.
SQL Server, Java, all that kind of stuff. So I decided to go into coding school while I was still working with homeless people. So I was able to do that successfully, and I became a software engineer in the year 2000. And I worked in the industry for 8 years as an engineer, but I wasn't fulfilled. The connection
Hmm.
wasn't there. Something was missing for me.
Wow.
Uh, and that was the people side of things. So I thought, okay, let me work with people who build the software, because I have that technical edge and I didn't want to lose it. So here I am today, still a program manager working with people who build software.
Amazing, amazing. That's a brilliant introduction to yourself and your background. Thank you so much.
No,
And I think let's just take a moment and say welcome to all our viewers today. Thank you for joining us. As you're hearing Sade introduce yourself, why don't you post a hello, a welcome for us for Sade? And of course, if while we're having our conversation today, anything sticks out to you, you've got a question, a thought, an opinion, then just whack that in the comments, and then we'll come back to it either during the conversation or at the end of our chat today.
We absolutely
Um,
will.
we absolutely will. That's right. Yes. So really interested in your engagement and your comments and queries. So do go ahead and stick those in. So why don't we get started with I guess our conversation, Shade, and perhaps I think it'll be really useful for us and for them, our viewers, to hear about how your unique background and experiences have shaped your leadership approach. What could you tell us about what you've learnt, what you've discovered, some insight you've already given us a little bit there into fulfillment, but tell us more about that and how has that shaped your leadership style and approach.
so thinking back at having worked with lots of people, worked on different programs, transformation programs, big transformation programs. And the thing that really sticks out for me is people, because obviously I have a technical background, having been a software engineer. So while technically things could be challenging, most of the time it's the people side of things that adds that level of complexity.
Mm,
And coming in as a counselor, counseling is all about looking after people's well-being.
Yeah.
So naturally, that gives me an edge to trying to understand what's happened with people, trying to fix issues and arguments, and anything that's not running smoothly around the program due to people has always been my forte. So it's really helped me to have that, I would say, empathy, which is
empathy.
really, really key. Yeah, so it's really helped me.
Wow. Okay, that's really interesting. It's something interesting you mentioned there around complexity,
Yes.
and you said people, and you use that in the same sentence. Tell us more about that. What, in your view, makes dealing with people, working with people, complex? What could you tell us about that?
I think it's about so I'll go back to empathy. So when you're dealing with other human beings,
Yeah.
you need to leave that space for things that could have gone on before you met them at work, say,
Yeah.
or you meet them on the road and they behave somehow to you, or something has gone on before that time. You have to have that. Everyone has a positive intent.
And
People
right.
don't
Yeah.
go, people don't go to work every morning to be destructive or make their colleagues, angry or upset. So just always having that positive intent that you don't know what's going on before they came in. So giving people that leeway, having a bit of patience, having a bit of spending more time listening to people, looking at the nuances, non-verbal cues, all those things you take for granted that could give you an indication as to maybe something is going on with that person. So it's just listening more to people, asking
Listening.
curious questions as well, and being observant. It's easier said than done. We're all human beings. Sometimes
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
upset as well, you know. So you have to just give that space for people to be human.
Give it.
Space to be human. What does that mean, Sade? You're using this wonderful term, and I'm always curious. How do you define it?
Human, it's just how we deal with each other. So, people are people. So if anything is happening, say in an organization, and the first thing that goes, I would say, wrong is when people are trying to communicate. So communication is key as well. So it's so easy to have miscommunication. It's so easy, especially now that everything is online, and there's that face-to-face interaction is even less, where you can read cues and look at people
Yeah.
and kind of sense things. So being human is just, let's just treat others the way you want to be treated,
Good
or
point.
even treat people the way they want to be treated. And that takes a lot. It's easier said than done. You have to. That means you understand people, understand other cultures as well. There's a lot in there to unpack. But I just think, let's just behave towards each other the way we want to be, for people to deal with us as well at that human level.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Thank you so much for that insight. I think really crucial. I just think I'd like to go back a bit in time, and clearly, you had 7 years working, as you said, in that counselling, or sorry, home with homeless people, right?
Yeah.
7 years. I mean, that's a long time, a very long time, and I'm sure you must have a collection of stories from that experience that you've had, right?
Yeah.
But I think that experience that obviously had a impact on you in some way going into then technology and working with teams. What do you think was missing in because you talked about being fulfilled, and I'm
Yes.
really curious. I'd like to break that down a bit, and if you don't mind, share a bit more about what was that feeling inside you that made you feel you weren't being fulfilled in that work. Because from the
Yeah.
outside, hearing your story, I think most of us would think, wow, working with homeless people,
Yeah.
surely that's quite fulfilling. That is, really at the heart of
Supporting
helping
people.
people
Yeah.
who are in need, who need
Yes.
support.
Yeah.
So that I'm just amazed that something happened there. It wasn't fulfilling. You went somewhere else. Just could you just tell us more?
So what happened in there? The job was fulfilling. I really enjoyed it.
Right.
it was financial sense that came in, which wasn't
Okay.
fulfilling.
Right.
So my thinking was, okay, I'm working with these young people. I'm really loving it, but I really want to go back home.
Ah, I
And I
see.
would love
Okay.
to have said, I've spent 7 years or 8 years in the UK doing this, and now I can use that skill back home. But I realized quickly that the skills, that the issues that were facing the young people in this country was very different from back home. So I thought, okay, from a financial sense, purely financial sense, what tools or trades can I pick up that I'll be able to use back home? Coding, the language is the same. Everyone is going into that boom, boom, 2000, around the corner. So that was what happened. So I went into coding, software engineering. I did it for 8 years, but that was what wasn't fulfilling. I was working with code, and like I said, I did it for 8 years. It wasn't too bad, but I wasn't happy.
Right.
I
Okay.
was missing the human element.
Okay.
So I started going out, kind of trying to showcase what I was building, helping the account management team to sell it in, and I was enjoying that more. So I'm thinking, oh, something is missing here. So when I did Prince 2 then, way back then, and then since then I've done a lot of Agile courses and qualification.
So let's talk about agility a bit more then, since you've just mentioned it there. Um, you obviously you've talked about, okay, we've understood a bit about what the fulfillment aspect, hard reality of life. We need to survive. We need to be
Exactly.
comfortable enough to survive in life. We understand that. I'm sure everyone does. So that was the hard reality. You're looking for something when it came to the technology space to work with people and get back to your roots in terms of what you enjoy doing. So that's happening for you.
Yeah.
Where does Agile come into the picture in that background? How does that fall into place, and what's the connection for you when it comes to all this stuff we've been talking about?
Okay, so when I became a project manager, used Prince 2,
Right.
and
And
sometimes
for our viewers, sorry, some of us may not know, some of them may not be aware. So what is Prince 2? Just if you could just let people know what
that
that
is
is.
managing projects in a waterfall way, so it's
Right.
all stage gates. So you can finish one, you can start one aspect before finishing the other aspect. So it takes ages,
Right.
it's not, and that's something that that is very predominant with big organizations and governments as well. So and in that way of managing projects is demand, and you have to be in charge. You have to tell people what to do. And that wasn't my natural inclination, and it showed. It really did. Yeah, it did. And so even though I did it for lots of years as well, I wasn't. It was fine. It was dealing with people.
Yeah.
But when I did my first Agile qualification, and it just clicked. It was amazing. It was like, okay, this is what I've been looking for. This is how to work with people to get the best out of people. Because if you imagine, when I was a developer, I was working with code. Code doesn't talk back at you. It just it turns red when you're working, and it turns green
when you don't consider AI.
Yeah, so it's one set of frustrations, but it's actually something within your constraint that you can manage. But then when I started working with people, which is what I was missing, and I realized as well that the challenge that it comes with its own challenges working with people, because people will talk back at you, which is fine. But then because of my background, that really, really, really helped me, like I said, to be more empathetic than most. And I found out that it gives me so much joy when I'm working on a program of work, which was in disarray, and I have quite a few examples in my professional life, and I come in, and the feedback is, Sade came into something that was chaotic, and all of a sudden the communication was working smoothly.
So tell us a bit about that Sade secret sauce. What is it that you're doing there? What are you sprinkling? What's going on that allows people to provide that feedback? Let's hear some of that detail.
It goes back to treating people as human beings, wanting to understand.
I know
better.
this sounds, but honestly, Sade, for our viewers, it's a mystery. So why don't you reveal, pull the curtain back and tell us what that means?
Okay, just smiling at someone.
Smiling, amazing.
Honestly, you don't know what you do with that. It's so powerful. It really is.
Wow.
One of the things I noticed when I came to this country is people smile in the morning, they smile at you, good morning, and
Right.
that's it. When you smile with your eyes, it's different from when you smile with your teeth or with your mouth.
Okay.
It's powerful. It's having connection. It's building genuine, real relationships, authentic relationships, presenting yourself as yourself. It's so powerful. It's a bedrock of psychological safety. I don't want to bring that in, but actually, it's going back to that feeling, making other people feel comfortable where you are, making them feel they can speak to you,
Yeah.
they can relate with you.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
So, and you talked about some examples of you've gone in and
Yes.
the delivery of the work, it's not going well, things are in a poor state. So what, just tell us about how you work there. So if you want to share a story or an experience, then by all means. But like, so you're confronted with that situation. What's the first thing Sade does? Is it, apart from smiling at people with that smile? That's amazing. But what's the next thing that you're doing?
You step back. You go into a situation where there's conflict. You
Yeah.
step back and observe.
Okay.
Obviously, they'll tell you this is what's happened and that, but do not take that at face value. You have to observe things. It's about facts and the way people are behaving that you take away. So I've been in situations where I've been working with teams that are dysfunctional.
Right.
So one of the first things I do is, obviously I want to measure this. So sometimes I can pull together a questionnaire to ask them how things are going at that level where, it's not, you will know who is giving a response. Sometimes I use Mentimeter, and that gives me an indication of where that team has issues.
Right.
And once I've gathered that data at a quantitative level,
Yeah.
then I'll now have a one-on-one at a qualitative level
Right.
to actually address the sound bites coming back from that initial research or data gathering. To try and understand, why people are behaving the way they are behaving, or why some people are disgruntled.
Yes.
As part of doing that, there have been sometimes instances where people have had to leave the organization because not everyone is coachable.
Yeah.
Not everyone is coachable. And and it's a fact. And in such situations where some team members will just not take on the way of working that's been introduced by the business and which everyone else is happy with, they have left the organization. Some of the things I've done in the past is to just make sure that that process is as humane as possible and that person doesn't feel as if they've just been ejected, trying to understand them more and explain what we're trying to achieve and understand what their goals are. Goes a long way.
You said something really interesting. You talked about not everyone being coachable. I may come back to that, Sade, because that could be provocative for some of our audience. I don't know, but it's something to explore. But let's come back to it. But I think I'm curious about those first steps you described there. You talked about doing that qualitative analysis research, right? What kind of questions are you asking? What kind of things are you trying to learn or gather information on to make your next move? It's a bit like chess, isn't it? You're just planning, strategizing. So what is it that you need to know?
So things like, do you think you heard? Are your suggestions taken on? Do you feel you can speak up when you're talking with a youth? Do you feel safe to ask questions? It's just more safety questions. How relaxed are they within the team setting? Can they be themselves? Do they have a voice? Is management listening to them? Do they even understand what they're trying to produce? Do they know the purpose?
Wow.
The feature or the product they're working on?
Yeah.
Do they have a sense? I want to find out whether they have a sense of mastery at their trade, so they feel proud in their work as a software engineer or whatever role it is, and they're happy to progress, and they're happy that they're progressing their career, they're getting better at what they do, their trade mastery. The sense of purpose in that one is actually making sure that they understand what they're trying to do, what they're working on as an individual contributes to the whole picture.
Amazing.
That really gets you up in the morning because you feel fired, and we're all working together as a team towards a purpose. So that's really important. Yeah.
So we're talking. No, I just I mean, amazing stuff. So we're talking about. You mentioned mastery there. You're talking about purpose there. You're talking about motivation, and
Yeah.
I'm sure many of our audience are familiar. We're referring to things from the infamous Drive book from Dan
Yeah.
Pink.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I'm
so
guessing. Yeah.
Daniel saying and autonomy as well, because you have to be autonomous, have a sense of independence to be able to make decisions. Yeah.
So what kind of reactions do you get from people when you're going in? Obviously, they're in disarray, they're in conflict, they're not in a great state in terms of doing the work, they're not
Yeah.
effective. You're
Yeah.
asking all these questions. What
Mm.
kind of reaction do you get? How do people react to that?
Um, Actually, it's not bad
Okay.
because what at the end of the day, what you're trying to do is to help them. It's not about me. It's
No.
about them. It's about to help them do a better job, to help them be more fulfilled and happy in what they're doing,
Yeah.
to help them bond together as a team. There's relatedness as well, which Daniel Pick didn't add, but I think I read that from somewhere else. But
Yeah.
that's equally, you want to feel accepted. We're human beings, we're social beings. It's really important for us to feel comfortable and safe in whichever environment we're working with them.
Yeah.
It's
Totally.
really important. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay. So you and so what and then so you're gathering all this, you've asked this. So what happens? So what kind of typical next steps do you kind of follow up with when it comes to working with these people who, and it all depends on their answers, I guess. But
It
how do you?
depends on the answers, yeah, and
Yeah.
it varies. But it's now trying to understand each single person. So I have one-on-ones with team
Okay.
members, and I'll try and draw down to what motivates them because different things motivate us, and your motivation should be intrinsic, not extrinsic. So it's
Right.
really important to be driven from within. Just like what happened with me, my motivation was intrinsic. So it's trying to understand. Sometimes I use the most moving motivators. I think it's a
Yes.
concept that you can use to kind of sense what's important to people. So I've used that in the past as well. So to understand what motivates them, what aspect of the job really, really gets them going,
Yeah.
and what aspect of the job is impacting them progressing or being their best self. It's just pulling those apart and dealing with them at that one-on-one level. So it's about building a team as well as individuals within that team.
Okay.
It's really important, yeah.
So we're talking about building a team there. You touched on it, and that's interesting. That's something I want to talk about.
Yeah.
Which is we hear a lot nowadays about high performance teams, right? It's a bit of a buzzword. There's even a
Yeah.
podcast out there called High Performance with a semi well known sports presenter. I think he's even co-written a book as well. So I'm not going to refer to that, but
Yeah.
it is a buzzword. It's everyone's talking about it.
Obviously, yeah.
But you've clearly been in the heart of that type of work. You
Yeah.
do that day to day or quite regularly. So could you share with us any like strategies, practices that you've found effective in building a high performing team? What does that all mean to you?
It means giving power back to the people.
Power back. It's a bit like communism, isn't it, TK? What's going on here?
Well, that's an interesting one.
What I meant was, it's about the people, it's about the team, it's not about you.
Yes.
So when you're saying you want to work with a team to become a high performing team, that power is within that team to make that happen. You are there to create the environment to make it easy for them to make that happen.
And when we say you, what are we talking about? Just to be
As
clear.
a scrum master or as an agile coach or even as a delivery manager, because I've never really had the role coach before or scrum master.
Right.
But those are always been things I do within my role in delivery, either leading a team or department is always part of me. So I don't see that as a separate thing. I take that on because I think every delivery person working with other people to make things happen needs to have those elements within their role.
Yeah. So we're talking about some form of leadership role. That's what we were talking about there, right?
Yeah.
So you're describing that as is an enabling role or facilitative role, right? That's what I think you're describing. Okay, and so then let's, with that in mind, I mean, what has worked for you when it comes to building those type of high performing teams? What kind of things have you tried? Maybe haven't worked or have worked. I think our viewers would love to hear some of those tips from you in terms of your experiences?
So it's one of the things I like to do is be authentic with them. So I show my vulnerabilities. So it's easier said than done, because you want people to trust you.
Yes.
And for you to gain trust doesn't come in a day. It's building relationships. So I would say to people, I'm happy to be, to be challenged. If I'm not behaving the way I'm saying they should behave, especially in an agile way of working together as a team, watching out for each other, building trust, showing your weaknesses. Those are really straightforward things to say, but it's not easy to do, and it takes time, and it's all within building a relationship.
Yeah.
All those things come into for you to build a relationship with someone. You need those things in there. You need trust. You need to be able to show your true self.
Could you give an example of where you've been vulnerable and how it has helped? Because I'd love to hear a real life story, if you can. Oh, if you want to anonymize it, of course, do that. But I think it would really help me and our viewers to hear that from you.
There have been cases where I have, I'll talk about this one.
Yes.
I lost a close friend.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I was really, really, really devastated. But I went to work. Oh. And someone just said to me that day, they had to be that day, most of the time when you ask people how you feel, what do you say to them? I'm fine. That's what you say. But it came at such a time when I was so low. And I said, no, actually, I'm not fine. And you could see the look on her face. What do you mean?
Wasn't expecting.
It's like, how are you? I'm fine. You go on. And I said, no, I'm not fine because I lost my friend. And we just hugged in the kitchen.
Oh.
Yeah. It was so spontaneous. It wasn't planned.
Amazing.
It shows that, sometimes it's just part of being human, I suppose.
Yeah.
And yeah.
How did that impact your relationship with that person, the team?
Oh, we're very close. I mean, the person now has moved on to another role. She will call me and say, Sade, I'm having issues. This team, what can I do? This person has been there for a long time. They feel they know everything. I'm really struggling. How do I deal with it? This is what's happening with us.
So what you're telling us, it's an act that helps bond people, isn't it? That by being vulnerable like that,
yeah.
I mean, you weren't intending to go out, obviously, and share the news, but it was the right thing. Yeah, exactly. Yes. But it helped bond, create the relationship. That's fascinating. Thank you for sharing that. It's a powerful story. I think let's go back to your counselling background again, because I think it's useful to see what you. And I'm guessing some of this is subconscious, and it's not been at the forefront of your mind, but I think for our viewers and me as well, I'm fascinated to know, how have you, I mean, if you want to share a story or a time when this has happened, but how have you leveraged that counselling background to help teams in the work they do? What can you tell us about that?
Okay, so actually, while it's a good thing to have, like, say, empathy and building people's well-being and all that.
Yes.
It had to be carefully balanced as well, because I'm not a counselor in that role. A coach is different from counseling. Counseling goes deeper. So I need to know where to draw the line. I know that I'm not their counselor. This is what I'm there to do, to support them and create that environment for the team to thrive or the individual to thrive, not to solve something that might be way in their past and they're struggling with. So sometimes I do a help kind of point to that, but I don't go into a proper full counseling sessions and that, because that's not my role. If you see what I mean, it helps me understand better what could be going on. I can advise people or say to them, have you considered this? But then I draw the line there, because that's not the role that I'm in that position.
Yeah, sorry. So that's really interesting. So I guess in that sense, then, if you have that knowledge and awareness of where to draw that line, has it had the opposite effect where it's hindered you? Has that background hindered you from doing what you're supposed to be doing? Has that happened before?
No. Not really.
Not really? No. Okay. Simple. Very simple. That's so. Then let's move to the. I guess the coach. Your statement earlier. This is, I think, something we got some time. So let's break that down. You said some people aren't coachable, and at the same time, you also said early, at the beginning of our call, you talked about people don't go in with negative intent. People have positive intent in the workplace. They're there to do good things. They're not there to do bad things. So how do you square
Right.
all of that, Sade? Because you obviously you've got that view of people, but then you also think some people aren't coachable. Tell us more. What makes you
So that
think
comes out when you're building a relationship with someone.
right?
That's when you find out, what's going on. I'm not qualified to start talking about some people who are psychopaths, or some people are just so good at what they do, they know how to say the right things, even though they don't mean it. If you see what I mean. So like different personality types. But if you talk to someone, you try and build a relationship with someone, you observe how they deal with you, then you kind of sense whether they're real or maybe not. Is it this one? Yeah.
Real. What does real? Okay, so tell us more
I
about
don't know
real.
whether they're pretending to be nice and or they know the right things to say to get people to do what they want to do. There's some people like that.
Yeah. Okay.
It is, yeah.
So people who put up a pretense or maybe a front or something, right? That's or manipulative. Those are the type of things. Is that what you're
Right.
talking about?
Yeah.
That sounds pretty. How can I say this? I don't say dangerous, but that sounds very tricky territory
Yes.
to navigate as a leader.
Yeah.
How on earth do you do that? I'm not sure if I have the skill for that. So Sade, tell us, how do you navigate that territory? How do you figure people out like that and do it in a way that's maybe still holding up to your values? How does that happen? How do you do that?
Exactly. I like the way you mentioned values. It's about knowing your values and what you want to do and what you wouldn't do. So sometimes you might have to put some distance between you and such a person because your values don't align
Right.
with what you've noticed about them. And you can't change the world. You can't change the world. So it's just certain things are like that, but for your own peace of mind. But you can control your action. You can only control you in whatever situation you find yourself. You can influence So it's about controlling, understanding yourself, having that level of emotional intelligence to be able to be aware of what's going on around you, how to control your emotions as well. So that's equally important. Emotional intelligence is really key as well.
So that's it. So this brings me to something else. So emotional intelligence, being aware, all of that, from a leadership point of view,
Yeah.
really crucial skills, right? And I can understand that from what you're describing. But I'm thinking now about inter-team relationships, inter-team personalities. Now, how, from your experience, tell us. I mean, where is the line for you? Are you quite engaged and quite reactive or proactive in terms of stepping in? Do you sit back and wait for things to happen? Like, how do you manage that? How do you ensure that the team is, very collaborative, it's fluid, it's moving as it should, and then anything can tip that balance over. So just
Right.
what are your experiences in that kind of situation when it comes to the team?
It's using all your senses, isn't it, to observe, to listen, to understand how they're interacting. I'd like to give people a chance to develop their skills. I like to take that coaching stance as much as I can.
Yeah.
But then it depends on the team. So there are different levels of team maturity.
Right.
So
Okay.
I've had cases where I've had 2 or 3 teams at the same time at different levels of maturity. So it depends on how mature they are that you either step in or you step back. I've had teams where I've actually had them run on the stand-up. I did a rota because they were at that level where I could see that they could manage. And I stepped back and I was taking the stance of a coach during the stand-ups. I've done that in the past and it's worked well. But it's not with all teams. You have to gauge the team because you're working with them. You're building relationship at a team level and at a one-on-one level as well. So you understand where they are at, and the response they're giving, or their actions, or even the way you run all the session, the Agile ceremonies. That gives you an idea of what level they're at. The retrospectives, the way the kind of things that come up, how they come together to solve it themselves, and it's just guiding, creating that environment for them to keep, progressing and becoming more self-organized, self-managing. It's a journey, isn't it? So, as you know, with a team, they have to go through a forming stage. They have to storm, they have to norm, they have to perform, and then sometimes, the team goes apart. So all those comes into play.
It's interesting that you talked about the delegation there, and knowing obviously when to cut the slack a bit for certain teams. So there's clearly a skill, and perhaps it's based on experience. But I struggle with this, so I'm curious to see what your thoughts are, Sade. Is what I mean by struggle is knowing how much to delegate at what time to which team, as you said, right? So what kind of pointers, advice would you give me to say, okay, Arif, if you want to start delegating certain responsibilities to your team as a leader, here is kind of things that you should be thinking about. What could you tell me?
It's all going back to that the fact that you shouldn't be scared to fail.
Okay, right.
It's the experiment you run. That you try something, you see how it goes. Sometimes it fails, and then maybe they're not ready. But they learn a lot from that, and then they try again. So it's trial and error, and observing and building relationships with them to understand what level they're at and what they can do. So, like I said, sometimes in the past, yes, I would try some things and it doesn't work, yes, but we learn from it and we get better. Yeah. So it's trial and error, but if you don't try, you don't know whether they're ready to go for it or not. So that's
very true. And I guess it's about having the guardrails as well, right? So creating the environment where it's safe for them to try, safe for you to try. It's a kind of experiment that's okay if it doesn't work. That it's not going to the other extreme and saying, right, okay, you can work 3 days a week now, everyone, from tomorrow. Yeah, it's not that kind of conversation.
So, no. Yeah. And like I said, I like the guardrails you mentioned. For example, it's not a case of if something happens, someone would die. We're not talking about that. Do you see what
that's pretty extreme. That's pretty...
Exactly.
So, Sade, as we get towards the end of our conversation, I think I'd love you to focus on our viewers a bit. I don't know, TK, I don't know if we've got any questions or thoughts coming in.
Question, maybe not a question, but we've got a comment from Tonyin, and he said that high performance leads to a factory ground mentality, which is when you're driving high performance, you might fall into the grips of scientific management, of driving people too hard and stuff like that. So, how do you know you have the right balance, Sade?
Yeah, so it's interesting that Tony said that, and I understand where it's coming from, but then it's the definition of high performance. The definition of high performance for me is not team working at full capacity. No.
Ah, right. Okay.
That's not what I mean by high performance. High performance is a team that's able to work together seamlessly as a team because they trust each other. They know you will have the other person will have their back. And they're working at an optimum rate, not working, all the hours. No. It's about the team happiness. I don't like calling it happiness, but it's about morale, boosting the team morale. So you can see a team that's comfortable, that they're working with each other, they're working on the tasks, and I love Kanban for that actually, going through the pace and just working on one thing at a time, put it through, add the value quickly. I've had teams like that, and that is what I call high performance team. I'm not talking about teams that are 110% utilized and they're just banging everything out. It's about the value. You can work, 1,000 times, I don't know how many hours a day that got sent, but if you're just delivering things and you're not getting feedback from the clients, that's one of the things I instill within my team. I speak to product managers. We want the people who are building these things to be fulfilled. We need that loop to be complete. Right. So even in the even in the show and tells or the reviews or whatever you call it, we have product managers coming in to feedback on features that have just been delivered, how many people clicked on it, or this is a feedback from the customer, they're happy with this. All those kind of elements really go a long way.
Amazing.
So that's my high performance.
No, that's a really good. I suppose we could link it to sports teams that are successfully churning out results on a regular basis as well. So that's another way to think about it. Yeah. Another really good question. Reg Hawkins is asking, I love this one actually, Sade. He's asking, what feedback have you received that made you smile? I love it.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's just part of me. I've always been like this since a child. There's this saying in my country, I come and tell you, they say, my smile will never let my husband beat me. I don't know how to describe to try to say that, but that's always been just me, who I am. And it's just part of me. And yeah,
have you received any feedback about what you've done, anything you've done that has made you feel happy as well? Has that happened?
Oh yes.
And has made you smile?
Yeah. Oh yes. I mean, it's so fulfilling when you work with people and you impact their lives, or not even their lives, their work. Yes. And something you've made something happen that's made them happy, and they come back to you and say, this is what I'm saying. Like I said, someone has left, she's moved on to another place, and she's calling me to say, how do I deal with this? Yeah. Or sometimes when you work with people and you leave the place of work, you don't even go back there. But when you're forming those relationships beyond work, and you're able to, it's really fulfilling. And you see people becoming, better at their job. Yeah. It's really fulfilling. Yeah.
So as we kind of draw slowly to a close, I think I'd love you to share with our audience, our viewers, what would be your top tips, maybe 3 things around how to be an effective, human leader, right? That can build high-performing teams in the way you've been doing. What would you tell our viewers about that, or any leader listening today or watching today? What would be your 3 top tips on that?
Be yourself. Authenticity.
Be yourself, okay.
Trust the team. Believe they can do the work. It's easier said than done, but they need to feel that they're given that space to develop, and And the third one is always smile.
Always smile. Love it. I think that's the Sade. That's the Sade secret sauce. That's what we've learned today. It's always smiling.
Right? I'll put a smile on the LinkedIn feed so everyone can actually benefit from it. A wild smile from me.
Brilliant, amazing. Thank you so much, Sade, for enlightening us and sharing your amazing journey, your stories, your experiences. I've thoroughly enjoyed talking to you about it. I'm sure our viewers have as well, judging by some of the engagement. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much. I enjoyed this as well.
No problem. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. I'm going to hand over to TK because you've got probably some public service announcements, TK.
Yes, as always, I've got plenty.
Wrap up.
So yes,
sessions.
Join us on Friday, which is tomorrow morning. Is it? Time flies. For the breakfast jam, we've got a lovely topic. You'll be quite surprised. I am supposed to bring it, and I forgot what it is, but hopefully I'll remember tomorrow. Sade is usually there, so be our guest. Next week, we've got more interesting stuff for you, but there won't be a jam, there won't be a fireside, because we're actually going for a conference, a Scrum Exchange, so there's some tickets still with Tobias Meyer. Come find us there. And the next one, on the 8th of May, we are going to have Rebecca Kemp. Yeah, so if you're interested in listening from Rebecca...
I don't think I can hear TK. Is it just me?
Wow.
Yeah, I think TK's audio's gone. It's quite robotic, isn't it?
Yes.
Sorry, everyone, if you're on the audio. You may have to mute your speakers because it's quite loud. So, but TK was just introducing our next fireside, so I don't know if you can hear above the noise, but we're going to be back again for another fireside conversation on the 8th of June. So just mark your diaries, the 8th of June. We'll be talking to Rebecca Kemp. She's a director in digital transformation. So hopefully we'll see you all then. And we'll be probably posting the details very shortly later today. So do look out for that. Otherwise, all our events and everything is up on our LinkedIn page. So have a look at our LinkedIn profile. Do visit us there. And thank you, everyone. Have a great evening. And we'll see you all afternoon, wherever you are. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.